Where are my slides? Coming through? All right, fantastic. So my name is Kaylee Kipe, and I am the co-owner and lead business consultant at Hibou, and we're a US-based Odoo partner. And Halloween may be over, but today we're going to be talking about the very scary topic of the chargebacks and what the future of chargeback prevention will look like in e-commerce. So first of all, what's a chargeback? Well, it's essentially what the name implies, right? So a chargeback is when a charge is made to a customer, and a customer can contact their bank and essentially request that the charge be reversed or charged back to the retailer that made the initial charge. So they can call their bank and do this, or in this day and age, it's much more common. They don't even have to talk to anybody. They just log into their account, they click on the transaction, and they indicate why they want to initiate a chargeback. So chargebacks are usually done because the order is fraudulent. So somebody took somebody's card and they've been making purchases with it, or because the company that made the charge actually never delivered the services or the goods. So it's intended to be a form of consumer protections, right? Where the consumer is financially insulated to some extent from fraudulent charges or charges where they never received the intended service or goods from the person that made the charge. So it's supposed to be a good thing, but how can a good thing cause so much trouble for retailers? Well, ultimately, retailers are often caught in the crosshairs of this because they're in a position where they take an order and they can fulfill the order and risk losing the money, or they cannot fulfill the order and risk losing a customer. And in many cases, while there are the occasional bad actors who will make a purchase and then just claim they never received the goods to get their money back, that's actually not usually the case. And the vast majority of these truly are fraudulent orders that do need to be refunded back to the customer. So the retailers are kind of left with two options. Like I said, they can ship those orders. They can ship every order that comes through the door and just say, well, to heck with it. We're just going to risk losing any potential revenue that comes from a chargeback. And they're not just losing the revenue. You have to remember that. They're losing the revenue, and they're also losing the cost of the goods that they've already potentially shipped to this customer when a chargeback occurs. So it's kind of like a double whammy for the company that is shipping these orders out. The other option is that they can have one or more people in their company that are dedicated to reviewing every single order for potential fraud. And I have been a part of developing these processes for large e-commerce companies. And while it will reduce the number of chargebacks that occur, I can guarantee you that large retailers are absolutely still dealing with a large number of chargebacks, even when they have dedicated people to reviewing these orders for potential fraud. And actually, a fun fact that comes from Signifyd, but a fun fact is that when people put these teams in place, they tend to actually lose more money than they would have lost from the fraud itself, from the chargebacks. So Signifyd's research indicates that 1% of orders are actually going to be fraudulent and receive a chargeback. However, when you put people in charge of making those decisions, they will actually reject up to 10% of orders for potential fraud. So retailers are actually losing potentially more money by manually reviewing these orders than they are by just shipping the orders out. But it's a big risk for them to just ship those orders, right? So obviously there has to be a better way. Like, we live in a world where we can type 5 words and we can have Midjourney create us like a masterpiece, or ChatGPT can write us a novel. So with all of this AI and data, there has to be a way that we don't have to have a bunch of people sitting around and reviewing orders and hoping that they make the right decisions. And if you think there's a better way, and you're wondering why I'm giving a talk today, then obviously it's because there's a better way, right? Like, I wouldn't be here if there wasn't. So Hibou has developed a fully integrated solution with Signifyd. So when somebody places an order on your website, certain information is sent to Signifyd. So that information includes things like the last 4 digits of the card, not the whole card number, right? That wouldn't be PCI compliant, but the last 4 digits of the card, what they purchased, where things are being shipped, the IP address of the order, where the order came from. And Signifyd is used by thousands of retailers. So Signifyd aggregates all this order data from all these retailers every day. And every time an order is placed, Signifyd is looking for important information, such as velocity of purchases. So is this card or this shipping address being used to make a lot of purchases in a very short order? What is the distance between the IP address where the order was placed and where the order is being shipped? Does the shipping name or the name and the address of the orders, where the orders are being shipped, does it match the normal purchase history for this customer? And it's taking all that data and it's analyzing it down. And then what happens is Signifyd will let you know whether or not they think it's safe for you to ship that order. So, and even better, depending on the level of integration or the level of service that you're working with Signifyd, because you can choose different options, and we'll see that in a second, but they have one option, which is a guarantee status. So if you choose to get guarantees on your order, and you ship an order because Signifyd tells you that it's a safe order, and you get a chargeback, Signifyd pays for that, right? So it's to reduce the essentially the risk to the retailer while still reducing the risk for the consumers as well. And in some ways it reduces the risk for the consumers even more, because rather than needing to go and issue a chargeback, a lot of time retailers are able to say, we don't believe this order is safe, and in fact they'll be contacting the customer to let them know that they believe there's fraudulent data occurring on their card. So let's take a look. And not jump to the back of the slides. All right, so we're going to get in here as our customer. Actually, before we do that, let's take a look at the Signifyd configuration, because it's actually pretty simple. So going to go in here to Signifyd. And when we come in here, there are really just a couple of fields, right? So you need your API key, which I'll show you guys how to get here in a minute from Signifyd. And then your default case creation. So this was what I was talking about earlier. So you can say, well, I don't want any cases to be created by default. You want a score. So we're going to see what a score looks like. Essentially, a low score means it's a risky order, and a high score means that it's likely a safe order. You want a decision. Does Signifyd think that you should accept or reject this order? And then that guarantee, which is the highest level of service. If you ship it and you get a chargeback, you get a refund essentially for that. And then over here, you have the websites that it's going to be used in. So Signifyd allows you to have multiple teams. That means that you can send all of your website orders from every website into a single team. Or if you have different brands and different websites, you can break it out into different teams. So you kind of have more granular reporting within Signifyd. And then the last setting we have here, and yes, there are only 4 fields you have to fill in for this to work, is who should receive decline notifications. So this is 100% optional, but like I said, typically somebody needs to do a follow-up when an order is declined. So the order has already been placed before Signifyd tells you whether or not you should ship it. So if an order is declined or Signifyd suggests that you should not ship this order, then you need to do some things, right? You might need to cancel the order, you might need to issue a refund, and you might need to contact the person that placed the order and let them know that you're not going to fulfill the order and why. So that's who would receive an activity, letting them know that they have follow-up steps to take. So with that in mind, we will come over here and we will place an order on our website. Go ahead and buy a couple blueberry pies. You can never have enough of those on hand. And we will process checkout here. Standard payment process. All right, our order's been confirmed. So we're going to come back into Odoo. And we're going to click on our sale orders. And we're going to see actually from the list view right here, we can already see that Signifyd is suggesting that we accept this order. It hasn't been rejected. So we're going to click on this order. And when we click on this order, we can see our Signifyd score right here. So like I said, in Signifyd, a high score means it's probably a safe order. And we can see the Signifyd case and the status of it. So if we click on this smart button here, we're going to get more information about Signifyd, the Signifyd case. They've accepted it, they've approved it, the order. And if we wanted more information, we could just click this button here, and this is going to bring us into Signifyd for the exact case related to this order. And here we can see some of the information that Signifyd's collecting, right? So we can see that distance. It's unusual that I'm placing an order 4,000 miles away from where the order is going to be delivered, but we can also see that there have been previous orders that Signifyd has seen from this customer and is rated. So as we go through here, we're going to see more information, not super important for our purposes, but it is kind of cool to see all this data in Signifyd. Coming back to the order, we also have on the delivery order, we have a smart button here that's giving the inventory team the go-ahead that they can go ahead and ship this order, because again, the order's been placed, the order's confirmed when they place the order online, and until that Signifyd case comes back, you would want this order to kind of have a notification to the shipping team that they shouldn't be shipping this. But this one's been approved, and if we clicked on it, we would see the same Signifyd case information we saw previously. So let's see if we can get an order rejected. I'm going to try, but I have placed a lot of orders with this customer. So now Signifyd thinks this customer is like super safe and we should always ship their orders. But if we cannot get one to decline, then we will just go ahead and I'll show you guys one that's been declined in the past. But in order to decline it, we're going to purchase so many gold cakes. Very high order value. We'll see if with a $68,000 order we can get this to decline. I can guarantee this, I can pretty much guarantee the score is going to go down, because with a $70,000 order it becomes more and more unsafe by the moment. All right, so that order's been placed. Let's see what we can find here. We actually haven't received this score yet. I'm not entirely sure why, so I'm just going to click this force update button. It is telling us that we can accept this order. Again, you can accept this order because Signifyd has decided that this customer places a lot of orders. They're a very safe customer. So even though our score has gone down because the value of the order skyrocketed, Signifyd is still telling us that we can go ahead and ship this order. So I'm going to show you guys one that's been rejected in the past, just so you could see what that would look like. So if we scroll on down here, let's go ahead and click on this one. Also a low score, so about the same score as the order that we looked at just a moment ago, but for a different customer. And Signifyd decided that this order was likely fraudulent and unsafe, and they suggest that we reject this order and we do not ship it. So because Ella here is the one that is intended to get the decline notifications, Ella has an activity that's telling Ella that the case has been rejected. So she would go ahead now and cancel the order and refund the order. And then if we look at the delivery order here, we will see an on hold. So basically you wouldn't want to ship this order, and when the order gets canceled, it'll cancel the delivery order just using the standard Odoo functionality. So the last thing I wanted to show you guys today, yeah, I'm pretty much right on time. This is looking great. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you guys today is how to make a new Signifyd connector here, because I said Signifyd connectors can go with different websites. So let's go ahead and say, and we'll say decision. Oh, I lied. There's one more thing I want to show you guys after this. So we're going to go ahead and select really anybody here. Again, that's optional. But in order to set up a new Signifyd site, all you need is the API key. So if I go in here to Signifyd and I go to my settings, we really just need to take this key right here. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. I'm going to put it in test mode because my Signifyd team is a test team. And then I'm going to click register webhooks. Let's go ahead and put it here too. I'm going to register my webhooks. And we're going to get a success. So essentially what happens is Signifyd needs to register what they call notifications about how, like what teams and things like that, what URLs are appropriate for this team to be sending these notifications to. So when we registered the webhooks, that went ahead and made everything for us. The only thing I just wanted to note here is that you can only have one set of webhooks per team. So if you're already using Signifyd and you have a team set up and you already have webhooks registered for that team, which you basically will need to have because that's the way Signifyd works, it's through webhooks. If you get an error, it's almost certainly because you can only have one. So you can create a new team or you can just come in here and delete the existing webhooks and you'll be able to regenerate those webhooks for use within Odoo. The last thing I wanted to quickly touch base on here, so there's that default case creation on the Signifyd itself. So this would be, if there are no overrides, how do you want Signifyd to treat these orders? Do you want a decision or a score, etc.? But there is also an override on payment providers. So per payment provider, you can also determine if you want to do something different than the default case creation. So a good use case for this would be, for example, maybe PayPal or something like that. You've determined as a company that you have a very low amount of fraud for a certain payment provider. Then you can decide that you don't want a case or you want something lower than a guarantee for those orders. And you might be wondering, why would I do that? Well, because Signifyd is a service and you pay for this service. So depending on how many orders you're sending and what level of guarantee or case creation you want, you ultimately do pay for that. So if you've determined that you have a very low amount of fraud and you're comfortable with certain orders or orders through certain payment methods, then you can choose that you don't want or you want a lower level of service for Signifyd for those orders. All right. So we really are to the last slide now. So thank you, and I open it up for any questions.
So thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. So I have two questions for the moment. So is it possible to put in phone orders for guarantee?
Full orders for
phone
quality?
orders for guarantee. I didn't get the question myself, so
okay.
I don't know if...
The only thing I can really think of that might be related to, so Signifyd is typically used for e-commerce orders, but we do have some clients that like to use it for their phone orders and their admin placed orders as well. And actually there's a really good use case for that because social engineering means that if you get somebody on a phone, they're much more likely to become like friendly with you and place an order online and like trust that you're not trying to pull the wool over their eyes with a fraudulent credit card. So it is designed to work with the website. If you wanted to send your admin or your phone-based orders through Signifyd, what I would probably recommend is just a workaround, which is just to create a website. You don't need to have it live or anything, but a website that represents your internal orders. And then the caveat to that is you would need to do a light bit of dev to expose this website field and make it not read-only for non-website orders. And I say that because Odoo only shows that field if the order came in through a website. But if you allow yourself to set that website manually, then you could set your sales team, and then when you confirm that order, because a website is in place, it will send the order to Signifyd so you can get a score.
Okay, nice, thank you.
Yeah.
The other question is like a double question, is like, what are the main criteria for the score of Signifyd? And can you decide yourself the criteria, or is by default?
So you can't decide the criteria. I do believe that you can work with Signifyd to tweak the criteria a little bit. You can work with their services team, but the main criteria they're going to be using, like I said, are things like the order value, purchase velocity. So again, if this credit card or this shipping address is suddenly placing tons of orders, especially if they're high value orders, those are going to start setting off alerts. So I don't believe you can completely change those, but I do believe you can work with your Signifyd account manager and they can do tweaks to kind of weight things a little bit differently for you. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Then we have also like, is there some reliability percentage for the Signifyd score compute? If you have any reliability percentage for the Signifyd score compute.
I'm unsure what the question is asking.
And the other one is how to test that the score is relevant compared to the reality. Is there testing?
Yeah, so relevant compared to reality, that's a good question. So I think this is specific to every business, right? Like businesses kind of know their own broad liabilities more than anybody else does. So in terms of testing, I would see something like what I did, which in this case, I have placed so many orders for this customer that it just went through. But the example of place a really high order value and you will see that score plummet. Whether or not Signifyd tells you to ship the order or gives you a guarantee is going to be based on how many times Signifyd's seen that order and if they think it's safe. But you can absolutely do things to send that score up or to plummet that score back down. And that's one of the ways that you can kind of test around the reality of it. But another thing to remember is that, I don't want to say data is perfect, but like I said earlier, humans are much more likely to say that they believe an order is fraudulent or that it's not safe to ship than the data actually backs up. So you might think, I'm testing it and this is saying I should ship this order and I absolutely shouldn't ship the order. But data doesn't necessarily lie either, and Signifyd is aggregating and processing data across thousands of retailers. So, again, you have to go with what you know because you know your business best, but just keep in mind that Signifyd might have more data than you do about what is safe for an order.
Thank you for all the explanation.
Yeah.
It will be done for today.
Okay.
So thank you a lot and thank you again.
Thank you so much.